Now, in a significant upgrade, the Union Cabinet has approved the PAN 2.0 project, which aims to transform the existing permanent account number system. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by the Prime Minister on Monday, approved the 1,435 crore PAN 2.0 project of the IT department, which will upgrade the existing system and make personal data protection mandatory for user agencies. The project will introduce a QR code on PAN cards and make PAN the common identifier for businesses. The PAN 2.0 project will enable technology-driven transformation of taxpayer registration services, improving ease of access and service delivery. It proposes to make PAN the single source of truth and data consistency with a focus on security and optimization of infrastructure. A unified portal will be introduced, replacing the existing old software. The PAN 2.0 project will be completely paperless and online, with a focus on grievance redress. The project is expected to improve the overall taxpayer experience and promote the ease of doing business. So what does this all mean for you and me, the viewers? Let's go across to my guests who are joining me at this point. We have Lloyd Matthias, Business Executive and Independent Director, Ankit Jain, Partner of Way Jain and Associates, and Professor Bijon Mishra, who is a noted consumer policy expert. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining me on this debate today. Let me start with you, Ankit Jain. The big question then automatically comes, and I hope you can break it down for our viewers, is what happens now? Do we have to then get in a new PAN card to replace our existing PAN cards?
Yes, so let's understand first, when was PAN introduced? PAN was introduced in 1970s to make administration of tax a little easier. Over that period, the utility of PAN has increased many-fold. Now it has become a universal identity proof for many places. And today, the revamping of PAN will make its utility even more beneficial for the users. So for how it will evolve is, one of the things that we can look at is how the PAN and Aadhaar linkage evolved. So we started with Aadhaar was independent and the PAN was independent, and the government thought that the linkage of both of these is important, and they rolled out a roadmap for linkage of the two. That is how we expect that the linkage for upgradation of PAN 2.0 will also happen. Now the PAN 2.0 will need some additional detail. This may be biometric detail. This may be a repository, which will one by one will have to be incorporated into the PAN. Would require users to give in more information. Maybe require biometric. Since the government already has Aadhaar biometrics, combination of two may ease the process also for the long run. And slowly, steadily, we expect that once this is adapted on a larger scale, then the government will set a deadline by which people need to transition to the PAN 2.0 and disincentivize the old PAN, just like in the case of PANs which are not linked with Aadhaar.
So this is, of course, an extension of the logical PAN to Aadhaar linkage which happened under Modi 1.0, if I'm not mistaken. Lloyd Matthias, then the next obvious question is, from a macro perspective, what was so broke in the existing PAN system that needed fixing? Because evidently there have been clear logic and a thought process being taken into account before such an ambitious project worth 1,400 crores has been announced.
Thank you for having me on your show, Ritanshu. I think the ultimate goal is to provide taxpayers with an improved digital experience. Having said which, I think some of the good steps this government has done is really kind of led the way when it comes to digital public infrastructure. What we've seen over the last decade, all across, right, from the UPI, which has been a great extension, starting with the Aadhaar, of course, which was built in the early 2000s, I think has been very positive. The way I look at it is that this is a big positive step in India's leadership in the digital public infrastructure. I think after our success of UPI and other digital initiatives, I think this is a step in the right direction. My sense is this will do two things. One, it's a technology-driven transformation of the entire financial ecosystem. Right now, a lot of our identifier ecosystem built on Aadhaar was one part that kind of streamlined quite a bit, including the linkages. I think now when you look at the entire financial infrastructure, the entire payment ecosystem, our taxation, including GST, I think there's a lot of complexity. Today, citizens have to go through various portals, right? This becomes a unified identity for all financial transactions, whether it's your personal income tax, whether it's GST, whether it's things like EIN. I see this being four big improvements. One is a long-needed system upgrade. As the previous panelist said, the PAN was introduced back in the 70s, and a lot of identifiers have been built over it. I think now creating something de novo using existing data will be a great step, a system upgrade. Second, we badly need a common business identifier. Anyone who's gone through the rigors of paying his GST independently of his tax sees the kind of complexity that is there in the entire ecosystem. This needs to be simplified. Then, of course, we need a unified portal, which this is what the system seems to be promising. And I think lastly, take adequate steps on cyber security. I think what one is hearing, even for people not very deeply involved in the finance ecosystem, is the extent of cyber fraud and cyber security concerns. So I presume the new system will be built with adequate safeguards to actually protect consumer and financial interests of all concerned. So I think it's a very, very good step in the right direction. And obviously, as details come clearly, we'll be able to understand its actual implications.
So, Lloyd, just a follow-up question on that before I go across to Bijon Mishra. You said that one of the key purposes this achieves is that it removes the over-reliance that we now have on Aadhaar to PAN cards. And that is a very interesting observation you made, because you're right. In many ways, Aadhaar has become, and partly because of the emphasis put by this government on Aadhaar when it came to linking it to PAN, linking it to bank account, driving license, etc. Not only did an essential general identification document become key to all financial transactions, it also opened the portal of Aadhaar being duplicated, Aadhaar being misused. We all know how easily it is to get a fake Aadhaar, these things. So is it evidently in a step in the right direction to ensure that when it comes to financial transactions, you have a ID which is specifically tailored to that, and that's where PAN 2.0 comes in? Am I right in getting your assessment?
Absolutely. I think that's the point. I think we're really looking at two different citizen identifiers. One is Aadhaar, which is purely a citizen identifier, which determines that you are you, and therefore is linked with all citizen-related services. And the other being the PAN, which becomes the umbrella for the whole range of financial services, whether it's your unified pension scheme, whether it's your GST, whether it's your personal income tax. So the entire financial or your things like your director identification number, I think this is the kind of umbrella for the entire financial identity. And therefore, I think as a growing and a mature society with so many of our transactions today digital, I think this is the perfect step in the right direction.
Thanks for the input, Lloyd. Stay on with us. Let me get in Dr. Bijon Mishra, also noted consumer rights activist with us. Professor Mishra, I have to be, for the sake of playing the devil's advocate, the other response that I've seen on social media after the big announcement came in from the cabinet was that how will this process be implemented? Because let's be honest here, while nobody has questioned the intent behind some of the key decisions which have been taken by this government over the last 10.5 years, whether it be linking PAN to various other identification forms, whether it be getting UPI, as was mentioned by Lloyd Matthias, there's also a very negative feedback which comes in terms of the hassle when it comes to the ground level implementation of such massive schemes. We all remember at the end of the day what happened with demonetization. Do you share these concerns, or do you feel that they're a bit misplaced at this moment?
No, the concerns, Dipanshu, concerns are always good because that is what brings in improvement. And I always firmly believe that the mechanism should be so friendly that people should be able to not only share, but also seek redressal and remedies in terms of their hardships or difficulties. Let me tell you, let me start from 15th August 2014, when the Honorable Prime Minister announced Jan Dhan. And then it got implemented on 28th of August 2014 to be financially inclusive for everyone. In my office, since then, nobody receives their salary in cash. It all goes to their bank account. Now, everybody, all the citizens in the country, this step, which the government has come in, I think is the right step. A bit late, but it's never late than never. So it's damn good that PAN is now being seen as an inclusive tool to empower the citizens in terms of financial inclusion. And I, as a citizen-centric person who wants to talk about policies which is consumer-centric, I would always say that I've always held the government responsible to ensure that all subsidies which are paid out of the taxpayers' money is well targeted. And that is what I look at, that this PAN 2.0 would be able to bring everybody under one umbrella, where the financial inclusions would ensure that nobody kind of evades in terms of their financial profile. And they should be able to, because I have met many people who do not deserve subsidies, are being given subsidies because we don't have the correct data in place. And that is where, many citizens I have come across feel very proud that, I am a beneficiary of a subsidy, whereas he is doing very well for himself. He's a self-employed person making good money, earning through agriculture as well as his business, but he doesn't want to admit the fact that he is not entitled for a subsidy. So we have to weed out these kind of people from the financial inclusion. We need to get and target only those people who we firmly believe needs support, financial support. And PAN 2.0, I can look at it as an instrument or a tool to empower the citizens to move forward, make their financial data transparent. And here one issue comes in is in terms of my privacy and my confidentiality. Government must ensure.
So that was my next question, Bijan
data,
Mishra. What are the key pitfalls that the government must ensure that it doesn't get repeated? One of them being privacy, which is why I was coming to you.
Yeah, the most important thing is a robust complaint redressal mechanism. You see, in our country, the complaint redressal mechanism is not matching with the technology which we have got. It asks for 48 hours, 1 week, 10 days time to respond, which is not admissible, which is not taken. We must respond maximum within 12 hours. Even if the volume is there, technology is an enabler. It can respond. People just want to know whether you have heard me or not. And then people want to know how promptly you can redress my difficulties and my issues. So the most important aspect which I feel is, with this I have seen they have announced that one, it is going to be free. Nobody has to pay anything for this change, which is a good sign. It will be delivered to the PAN card holders at their premises on the net, or either on email or physically by post. Like we got our new PAN card when we changed our address or we relocated ourselves. So in a similar manner, but there was a fee. Here the government is saying they'll do it free of cost. That is very good. The second most important aspect, as I said, people must find it very friendly. This transition must be very friendly. It should be very easy. It should be simple. And if people find it difficulty, they should not be being chased by agents, where they take away fat fees from the citizens because they're poor chaps. They're not able to manage this kind of a transition. So government has to ensure that they must make it very simple and easy to access, this change. And this is very important. It has to be made mandatory. And in fact, every bank account holder, every citizen must have a bank account for that matter, in my view. And there has to be transparency in financial transactions. But please
so a very clear list
data.
of suggestions and a very clear list of suggestions which you've put forward. Let me finally come back to Ankit Jain. Ankit Jain, I started this discussion with you and I'll end it with you as well. From the viewer's point of view, the consumer's point of view now, what are the steps I need to do? Obviously, the government will come up with more clarification as to how exactly this transition process will happen. The good thing, as Professor Mishra pointed, it's going to be free, but it may also be paperless. So am I going to get a soft copy of the ID of the PAN card? Or what are the steps which I need to do as a viewer to ensure that I'm ready to get my new PAN 2.0 card?
Yeah, so as of now, the details regarding how the transition process is not being made clear, and we'll have to wait for the government to lay down the exact procedures. In my opinion, to make PAN 2.0 success, they would need some additional info. Some of it can be combined with Aadhaar and made into a single identity. I've always been advocating PAN should also include an address, and it should work as a proof of address also. Because when we are applying for KYC at bank, at telecom companies or in utility companies, they've always been asking one proof of address and one proof of identity. PAN has been working as a proof of identity, but for address, they've always asked the secondary address. So if we have a combined proof which works for both identity and address, that it will make things easy. So that may require some updation from the users end, that they might need to confirm the address and all of this. So, but yes, this will come through right now. I don't expect to in my that the PAN will automatically be delivered. Government will have an online form where they will ask the user to confirm the details. If the details are all okay, it will be approved and you will receive the confirmed PAN 2.0 on in your email or online on the portal. But if you want to change those details, then they would have a process, as Mr. Vijay clarified. It should be an easy process that should be there, and that's how we expect that the PAN should be updated.
But Ankit, a very important point, which is why I'll bring in Lloyd Matthias for the last 30 seconds as well. Lloyd, Ankit believes that PAN should also include the address component as well, which is why it's no longer, I mean, right now, for instance, it's only seen as an ID proof. It's never seen as an address proof. But does this align with your viewpoint that there should be a fundamental segregation that should be made between PAN and Aadhaar, and the government is moving in that direction?
Yeah, I don't know what are the specific details, as Mohit rightly pointed out. I do believe, though, that there are two sets of data. One is citizens identifier data, which is required for all basic citizen services, including elections, right? So I do believe that the election ID card can become a subcomponent of your Aadhaar should be good enough on that count. And the other level, I think, is the range of financial data. Everything from your pensions to your insurance to your GST, including things like your car registration. So I believe that these could be two separate sets of data, which a lot of countries are looking at as two separate things. Now, whether the one wants to link the two, I think is a call for the government and for privacy activists to look at. But I do believe that ideally one has to have two separate sets of data, which in some ways are linked, but not directly so that they can be misused.
All right, Lloyd, thank you so much for joining us. Also, thank you so much, Ankit Jain, for joining us, and Professor Mishra. Always a pleasure to have you with us.